Aviation, it's a fascinating subject, and for most people that dream of soaring the skies begins at a young age, but sometimes those ambitions are eclipsed by other priorities. Fortunately, for those that do want to realize that fantasy of becoming a pilot, it's more attainable than you think, and there's a place here in town that can help make it happen.
The only prerequisite is the desire to do it, and showing up at the front door is the first step.
Seems simple enough, yet when most people consider the notion of flying a plane, there's apprehension because it's the unknown.
When you get into an airplane, we start moving in 3 dimensions, where in a vehicle, as you've been driving probably the better part of your life, it's always 2-dimensional. You can actually hold a student pilot permit at the age of 14, and so it is possible to fly an airplane solo before you can legally drive a car.
So you showed up and now you're interested in flying lessons. First up is the Discovery Flight, where your instructor gives you an airborne tour of the area and even lets you handle the controls as much as you're comfortable with. And as I quickly learned from the very first flight, you're in the pilot's seat.
The learning curve is, steep initially, but only for the first couple lessons as you're learning, some of the controls and what some of the instruments are and what they do. But it does plateau, and within a few hours, you're getting in and starting the airplane and driving it around, unassisted.
Watt says here in Lloydminster he sees a lot of recreational pilots, people just wanting to do it for fun, but ultimately it is a big commitment.
Time, money, and effort, actually, and so some people are overwhelmed by that. It's not something that you just walk in and can purchase your license. You get out of it what you put into it.
And what goes into it is lots and lots of training, starting with 40 hours of ground school, which includes the theory portion, aerodynamics and navigation. Then you need roughly 65 hours of in-flight training. And because everything is done one-on-one with an instructor, the students' availability and finances dictates how fast they get through it.
The average person, it probably takes a year to pick through the program. Cost-wise, it's probably about $13,000 or $14,000 to get through a private pilot's license from start to finish, including books and tuition and flight tests and all the associated costs.
But all future pilots must undergo a full physical and get a certificate saying they're medically fit to fly.
We look at family history, his own medical history, medication history. We look at blood pressure. We look specifically at his visual acuity, and then we fill out a specific standard form and then submit that to the regional medical officer.
As for Watt, he gets to help people realize their dreams and adds it's even rewarding to see what happens after the fact.
We've had students that have come through here and gone on to become military pilots and airline pilots and many different varieties, and so it's interesting to hear and see what they're doing after they leave here and move on in aviation actually.
And with kids returning to school in a little over a week, RCMP are encouraging drivers to be cautious near schools and residential areas. As Brian Lentz shows us in this week's Retrospect, police will be patrolling schools every day to ensure people drive safe.
This is one of the busiest sharpshooters in town, and if you're not careful, you could be his next target, especially if you get a number like this. 50 kilometers an hour anywhere else in the city would be fine, but here in a 30-kilometer-an-hour school and playground zone, it would cost you $82, $105 in Saskatchewan. School is back in session, and police are determined to keep the children safe.
It was a program that we initiated last year, which we have met with quite a bit of positive response from both community and school boards alike. Of course, speed does kill, and if we try to keep at least the two separated or keep at least the speed down, then we can have a safe community for everybody. The faster you're going, the harder it is to stop your vehicle.
Since 1997, police have continued to patrol school zones, and it's not just RCMP who are on the lookout for speeders.
In addition, our community peace officers can give out speeding tickets in the city as well, as do the photo radar. So quite a number of choices for you to get a ticket.
Though the numbers on that ticket have changed to a minimum $78 in Alberta, $120 in Saskatchewan for speeding in a school zone, the message remains the same.
Slow it down. 30 is really the maximum, and anything down to 2 could be too fast depending on the roads.
This year, kids return to school September 5th, And with all the excitement that entails, kids often won't be paying attention to traffic.
And yes, we remind them, and yes, their parents remind them, but they are children, and they will make poor judgment calls. So as adults, it's our responsibility to make good judgment calls.
That's all for Retrospect. I'm Brian Lentz.
An alarming discovery for canola producers as Sask Canola is confirming a heavy infestation of clubroot in a field in District 9B, which includes Lloydminster, North Battleford and Meadow Lake areas. The soil-borne pathogen is on the move from the Edmonton region.
It's been found further up along the Alberta-Saskatchewan border. There's some new findings in St. Paul area just in the last week. It was just found in the Peace River area as well, and Wainwright district.
Yerke says this is the year for clubroot to expand given the amount of moisture the region has had. Producers are being urged to be vigilant, use clubroot resistant varieties with at least a 3-year interval rotation between crops and minimize soil movement.
Saskatchewan has lots of canola acres in the province, so we just really need to get growers looking. And for them to look for clubroot, you really need to be into your field and pulling out a plant by the root and taking a very close look.
For more information, visit clubroot.ca or get in touch with your agronomist. Kindersley MLA Bill Boyd has resigned from the Sask Party's caucus after he was found to have breached the Conflict of Interest Act. According to the Conflict of Interest Commissioner, the breach occurred from Boyd's involvement in an irrigation project with a Chinese investor. In a statement released today, the former Minister of the Economy says, "I accept the Commissioner's report and take full responsibility for my actions." He goes on to say he made an error in judgment and would like to apologize to the Premier, all MLAs and the Saskatchewan people. His resignation from caucus is effective immediately. And the MLA announced earlier this month he would retire from politics September 1st. Well, after losing his grandfather 4 years ago to cancer, Xander Fletcher grew out his hair so that he could donate it to the cause. This year he's doing it again, but as Michaela Henschel reports, he's also doing more.
My name is Xander. I'm 11 years old and I have a mission. I am raising money to donate to charities.
This is the sign Xander made for his lemonade stands over the weekend. A blue ribbon on the side for his grandfather, who he lost 4 years ago to colorectal cancer.
Well, it made me, and I think Xander, think of all the different types of people that are affected by it.
At first, I just wanted to grow my hair because I felt bad for all the people that didn't have hair. And then we had the idea to try and raise money to donate to cancer.
He spent his weekend selling lemonade at the local Sobeys and outside of his home, with all the proceeds going towards cancer research.
Oh my gosh, it makes me so proud of him because he has no issues with doing it. Like even sitting at Sobeys yesterday, he was like really nervous, but he's no complaints. He's just really, he's proud of himself, and it makes my heart melt because I feel like I'm doing a really good job raising him.
But this isn't the first time Xander has helped the cause. He's growing out his hair so that he can donate it for a second time.
We seen a lady yesterday come up, and she was actually in the middle of battling breast cancer, and she was wearing a wig, and we were very surprised by that because it looked so natural and it was beautiful hair. And I said to Xander, I'm like, see, this is why you're growing your hair, because that's probably real hair, and look what it's doing for her.
Through the generosity of the community, the 11-year-old has raised an impressive amount in only 2 days.
It makes me feel proud of myself because, you know, like $327 is quite a bit of money just for a little kid like me.
Michaela Henschel, Newcap News.
The Border City Petting Zoo held a Customer Appreciation Day over the weekend as a thanks for the support they've received from the community. More than 500 people were out to hang with the pigs, goats, and other animals. Owner Wallace Sauvé says this weekend was reflective of how most of the summer has been, despite the season getting off to a rough start in May.
The sun was beautiful today. The weather couldn't beat it, so yeah, everything turned out perfect.
Sauvé says he's had great feedback on the additions of the wolves and zebras from customers this year and is hoping to make more additions in 2018.
Next year we're probably working on maybe getting a riding camel or two and go from there.
Pen transfers ahead of the colder weather will begin at the end of September.
This is Newcap Sports.
Lakeland College women's basketball had aspirations of a championship season, but a significant injury has the team searching for answers. Lance Phillips shows us how a season of high hopes has changed dramatically.
2 seasons ago, the Lakeland Rustlers women's basketball team finished a perfect regular season at 24-0. A major contributor to that success was Tori Dugan, but those contributions will not be happening in 2017-2018. The point guard suffered a torn ACL in the spring, ending her season before it began. The worst part may have been her feelings about breaking the news to her coach.
Honestly, I was freaking out when I found out it was an ACL. I was super scared to tell him.
It's tough to know, especially in a practice like this, a first practice, that Tori takes a leadership role all the time when she's in the gym, and I think she'll take that leadership role even while she's being injured. I think right now it's probably frustrating for her being here, knowing that she should be on the floor.
The frustration is real for the Australian, who is back for a second stint with the Rustlers, a stint that she intends to make the most of, in a different way.
Because I took a year off, it was my goal to come back bigger and stronger and try to lead the team to be successful. But look, it's okay to sit back and lead the girls from an outside perspective.
Having a player that's played a couple of years in our system under myself, be able to go talk to the players player on player instead of a coach, I think that helps a lot. And that's essentially a role that most of the fifth years fill.
Even though she won't be on the floor, Dugan is happy to be back in green and gold.
I struggled a lot having the year off. I think I was ready to come home. October last year, it was super hard watching the girls play, but I love being part of this program, and yeah, it's awesome.
More awesome is the fact that King has fulfilled the Aussie scholarship, a goodwill gesture not often seen in competitive sports.
Technically, you don't have to fulfill that scholarship. I think it's the right thing to do, and I foresee Tori a big part of our team moving forward. So I'm very happy to have her here. I know how much it means to her playing basketball, being here, getting her education.
All I wanted to do was be back here, and for him to honour my scholarship, I couldn't ask for anything more. Doing that for me means a lot, and I couldn't speak more highly of him.
As a coach, there's certain things that you probably can't live with yourself, and I couldn't live with myself if I told a kid, you're injured, I got to find someone else. I don't think that's the right thing to do, and I don't really think that's what we're about at Lakeland. So I'm happy to have her here, even though we lost an international spot for this year.
But losing that international spot for one season may pay dividends in the not-so-distant future. Lance Phillips, Newcap Sports, Lloydminster.
This past weekend was a big step for every AJHL team across the province. Main camps opened Friday, and for the Bonneville Pontiacs, it gives their coaching and scouting staff an opportunity to reap the rewards of their hard work. Lance Phillips has more.
After reducing their numbers from a 160-player top prospects camp to just under 60, the Bonneville Pontiacs got a first look at many of the players who will shape the 2017-2018 version of the club. And everyone liked what they saw.
First day is always a little bit of a slow day, but from what we saw with the pace of play, the effort that's given out there for the players at this camp obviously means something to them.
Pretty quick out there, even for a first skate for lots of guys for kind of a game style. It's pretty fast, a lot of skill. Pretty small team, I think, this year, but we'll be quick, we'll be skillful, so it'll be a good team.
I think to compete on the skill level of these guys, they're young, but like we said, talent is what it's all about, and no matter what age they are, and they definitely showed it here today. I was really impressed.
One player many are impressed with is Kirby Proctor. The 16-year-old plays the game well above his age, and although originally drafted by the WHL's Lethbridge Hurricanes, the pursuit of excellence product feels Bonneville is where he belongs.
Well, I know the coaches here really well. I worked with them before when I was little, and I mean, it doesn't get much better than this. They're great guys, always willing to do what's best for you and the team, and there's just nothing that tops that.
Even with their skill, players like Proctor will rely on Pontiac's veterans to guide them through the season, a role those same veterans embrace.
I think just show them the work ethic every day that you have to bring to play at this level. Going into the third year here, I think the biggest thing is just competing every night against bigger, stronger guys. So I think just working hard every day is probably the biggest thing, and I'll lead by example on the ice. Not much of a talker, so definitely lead by example.
Definitely trying to be a role model. My first year, I looked up to Bobby McMahon a lot. He's gone on to a few NHL development camps now, so he's a great guy to follow. Just being with him every day, being on his line, kind of learning from him. So hopefully I can do that with some younger guys this year too.
They get an opportunity to step into a leadership role. They get an opportunity to be able to help the coaching staff mentor our young guys about how we do things and why we do things and the way we do things. And then those guys ultimately will be in a different scenario than maybe teams in the past, because there's fewer of them and more young guys to be able to mentor.
At least one of the 56 players at this year's camp is a lock to be a Pontiac when the season opens September 15th. Second-year goaltender Sandro Sylvester finished the 2016-17 campaign with a .256 goals against average and a .907 save percentage. It's the kind of work that made Swan simply say, he's our guy. And he'll need to be to help his team earn wins with a defense core that's touting just one returning player. Lance Phillips, Newcap Sports, Bonneville.